Oh my God, you picked that up. I love that.
It is such an honor to meet you. So we want to get right into it. This leading star of Seven Veils is the one and only Amanda Seyfried. After working together on Chloe, did you always envision working with her again? And when did you realize this was the project, the right one to reunite on?
Yes, I mean we had a great experience working on Chloe, and I I've been looking at material, reading things. I always had Amanda in mind, but when this character began to emerge, it felt like, okay, this is the project. And also, it was interesting that it's about working with someone again after 15 years, which is actually also embedded in the film, where she's coming back to this project after 15 years as well. She was an intern on the original production of the opera in the film, and now she's invited back to remount it. So there was that. Also, it just felt like a very interesting time to see her 15 years after Chloe as well. And um, and look, there's no one, like, there are things that are happening in this film that I can't imagine any other actress being able to generate. Like, she's just so intuitive, and there were these, because we were moving so fast. This thing was shot over 19 days, and we had such restrictions in terms of, the opera schedule and her schedule. And there were these moments that rarely happen, and certainly didn't happen in Chloe, because Chloe was a very structured story, and in some ways it kind of follows a formula. This was actually quite different, and so there are places where she was just literally thrown into a circumstance, and had to react to it and respond. And it was thrilling to watch that. It was thrilling to see how she's able to understand something so quickly and seize on that, and play it, especially when it's dealing with these very stressful and re-traumatizing sort of experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of a follow-up to that. Were there any moments during filming where Amanda brought something unexpected to the performance that kind of changed how you saw the character?
Oh yeah, tons. I mean, it was very raw. Like, what she brings is very raw, and it feels like you have such direct emotional access. I think when I was writing this role, I was thinking of someone who was a bit more detached from it all, but she just is so present. And so I love that. I love when, as a writer, you think of characters one way, and then you find these actors that just saturated with such humanity. And if your camera is in the right place, you get to see that. It's really direct. And in this particular story, because you have the Salome story, this really extreme, crazy um, story of obsession, and that's embedded in the narrative. Um, that's always going to have this raw appeal, but to then have a performance in the present day which somehow matches that was really thrilling.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the film's location. So it was shot in location in Toronto at the Four Seasons Center for Performing Arts, which was amazing to see as a Torontonian. However, I noticed that the location was never mentioned in the film. Was that like a deliberate choice on your part?
Well, no, the Canadian Opera Company gets a presentation credit. It doesn't, and they're also in the end credits. It says the Four Season, but it's true. You're right. It's not actually mentioned in the dialogue. I mean, I guess it's a bit complicated because the Four Seasons Center is not the opera house. It's not called the Canadian Opera. Like, their building is actually somewhere else. It's Front Street. So if you just so that's why I think in the film it's called the Opera Company, or it's not. The Four Seasons Center is kind of it's a branding name, right? It's because it also houses the National Ballet and other things. So it wasn't a conscious decision, but it just felt, it kind of it was easier to just call it the Opera Company. Um, but they are, the Canadian Opera Company is very much a presenter of the film. Yeah. What's interesting is that for Torontonians is that there are certain views, like when you're, like, in the press conference, when you're looking down. up Avenue, like that view doesn't exist anymore. Literally the day after we shot that scene, all those wonderful trees in front of Osgood Hall were chopped down to make way for the new Metrolinx station. So it was crazy. I was also like worried that they were going to be chopped down as we were shooting, which would have been a bit actually maybe interesting metaphorically. But anyway, that didn't happen. A lot of chopped heads, but no chopped trees. Yeah.
No, that was a great scene. There's like two streetcars are running behind her as she's speaking. I'm like,
Oh
that's
my God, you picked that up. I love that. That's exactly. I actually when that happened, I was going, oh my God, that's so great. That looks choreographed or like looks like a digital effect because it's like it's so perfect. And also just the sound of the streetcar rails and all that. But it's yeah, it's a beautiful place, and that's a like that's a wonderful atrium as well. So I wanted to show it off a little bit. Yeah.
Absolutely.
it was gorgeous.
So Seven Veils intertwines fiction with real life experience, with you remounting Salome. So how did working on the opera simultaneously influence that script's development?
Well, I had worked on it a number of times. So we first presented this opera in 1996, and it was a hit. So it's been remounted a lot of times, like in different places around the world. But when I knew it was coming back to Toronto in 2023, I began to think of like, oh, okay, times have changed since 1996, and I wanted to kind of address that, but I realized that there wasn't anything I could really change in the opera because we wouldn't have time. When you remount a show, it's done very quickly.
Mm.
So I started to think of this script and this story that I could then actually use as a way of addressing some of the issues, but also reflecting on it. And but I always knew that it had to be shot at the same time as we were actually putting on the show, and that became really challenging, right? Because it's normally you have some wiggle room with schedule and you can move stuff around. We couldn't here; it was locked
Mhm.
in. And we're also locked into Amanda's schedule. Like she's very busy, and it was a miracle she was available because she just won the Emmy for the Dropout, and like but we thought, okay, look, if we're ever going to work together again, this is the time, this is the role. So the first thing was to put the opera on its feet. And then while we were in pre-production for the film. So the two things overlapped. And then we had to be shooting it while the opera was on stage, keeping in mind that it's in rep. So it's on stage and off stage, right? It's being moved for the other show that was on at the same time. So it was incredibly complicated and it was like clockwork, but it all worked out like miraculously. We shot it in 19 days. I've not shot a film in 19 days since my first features, like 40 years ago. Like so, it was really like a tour de force in terms of what the crew was doing and
Yeah.
how people were able, like the two, like the Canadian Opera Company and my film crew were able to work together in order to make this happen.
Yeah. Opera and film are such different mediums. Like, was there a challenge that you found in translating the intensity and themes of Salome into Seven Veils?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question because I think ultimately what opera is, it is a live performance. You're hearing these incredible human beings emitting the sound live on stage. It's not amplified. It's the real voices that are being played against this incredible orchestra. So one of the challenges was to kind of give you a sense of what that meant. And the big question is, do you get a more of a sense of that when you're seeing the staged opera scenes, or maybe it's more evident in the rehearsal hall when you're hearing the singers and you're seeing her like asking someone to sing something again, and you're actually seeing, the movement on their larynx and their throat. I mean, it's you want to kind of create the sense of what it means to be there live.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you one thing. If you were lucky enough to be at the premiere of this, which we had during TIFF at the actual Four Seasons Center, like so you were actually seeing it on the stage that it was filmed on. That was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a beautiful space, and it's kind of a sacred space for me since I've done so much work there, and it's so acoustically amazing. We're very blessed in Toronto to have such a great building.
Yeah, definitely.
Really. On a personal level, what is it about opera that continues to draw you in, especially considering your multiple directorial takes on Salome?
It's this blend of like drama and music. Like I use music a lot in my films. Like I have the privilege of working with a great composer. I've been working with them since my first features, Michael Dana. But we always, like use really strong music in our films. Like it's like and when you do an opera, that's that's there from the beginning. You have this drama and you have this amazing music, and then your job is to kind of visualize it and interpret it. It's kind of backwards from film in that way, right? Because music is the last thing you put onto a film, but opera is what you start with. So it's I just keep pinching myself when I'm doing an opera. I'm going, oh wow, like it's all like I don't have to imagine the music. The music is like there, and it's the starting point of it all. And my job is to then um, choreograph that and almost, it's also a combination of something that's almost balletic, because you're also working with gesture, and it's like I wasn't raised with opera. I have to say that I can't say I was one of these people who understood it when I was younger. But when I was offered to direct this particular opera, it was after Salome, the artistic director of the COC, saw Salome and thought there'd be a link. And I began to, I knew the play because I'd seen it in London on a visit there, this really great production by an actor, director called Stephen Burkhoff. And so I knew the play, I knew Oscar Wilde's play, but then to see it set to music was just mind blowing. And I immediately understood what the possibilities might be. And yeah, I feel very privileged that I've been able to work in the two mediums. It's tricky sometimes because you have to commit to doing an opera years ahead, and you don't know when a film project's going to happen.
Mm.
But in this case, the two were able to line up.
And it was worth it.
Oh, thanks.
Um,
Look, I look. I mean, obviously, I made it, but I actually think it's a pretty singular film. I don't think, I can say, and I think that I think Amanda's performance is incredible, and I think she's playing someone you've never seen before. Like, because I think there's lots of films that deal with people who are dealing with trauma, and usually it's something that bubbles up, like they don't really understand it until some point in the film it sort of like is revealed. In this case, I mean, she knows what's happened to her, and everyone around her knows as well, and so there's this kind of acknowledgement of what's happened. So the drama is not in kind of holding back and revealing that, but rather seeing what happens when she has to creatively kind of re-enter it and regenerate these feelings, and how that begins to shift her world. So it's a very unusual character, and I couldn't have had a better actress to work with on this.
Finally, since our podcast is called Dial M for Movies, we've got a fun segment we'd like to call Movie Speed Dial, where we'll give you a category and you give us the first movie that comes to mind.
Wow. Okay.
So, a movie you dial up when you need a good laugh.
Oh my God. I would say the first 30 minutes of Tropic Thunder.
We spoke to someone last week and he said this exact same thing. The same.
No
So
way.
yeah,
Seriously?
Tropic
Yeah.
Thunder, yeah.
Because you have to, if you have, there's also trailers for movies that don't exist. I don't know, like that's part of it. Like they've done a really good job of like before the film starts, they have trailers for imaginary films.
Mhm.
And for any film, and I'm not sure if that's just on, no, it must be on the film because I was gonna say maybe it's just on my DVD, but I think it's embedded in the film, and it's side-splittingly funny. If you know that era of when the film was made, like anyway, so it's not just the movie, it's the trailers of the imaginary films that are part of that are really funny.
A movie you dial up that's lesser known but a personal favorite.
Okay, here's one. It's by Ingmar Bergman. It's called Passion, sometimes called Passion of Anna. And I love Ingmar Bergman, but it's one of his lesser known films. And I just think it's such a powerful, and it's four actors like doing their best work. His four favorite actors. So that's a movie I always recommend to cinephiles. Yeah.
Wow. A movie you dial up that is a go-to from your favorite director.
Look, my go-to movie that and I've said this before, is my Desert Island movie, and and I'm proud to say he's a Canadian director. It's Norman Jewison's Jesus Christ Superstar. I
Amazing.
watched that film when I was 10 years old. I have it memorized. I know every lyric in that rock opera. Like I can just, if you tell me a scene, I'll just tell you what the lyrics are because I listened to it as a kid. But then when the movie came out, like it changed me because I went, oh my God, this is what a camera can do. This is how, and you talk about, again, it's another biblical story, I guess, right? Obviously, like Salome, but the music is obviously it's more like pop music. And I
Yeah.
love that film to bits.
And to tie it all up, and it actually goes back to your point that you made earlier, a movie you dial up with a score or soundtrack that you can listen to on repeat.
Well, okay, then you would say, okay, so I've already said Jesus Christ Superstar, but I would go to Vertigo because Vertigo has this score by Bernard Herrmann. But here's the thing: is that when you watch Seven Veils, you will notice that because in the film we're often using music from the opera without singing, just using it as score. And you will
Ooh.
see that there's an eerie resemblance between that music and Bernard Herrmann's score, like for Vertigo. At certain points, you kind of go, okay, obviously Bernard Herrmann was influenced by Richard Strauss, which only makes sense because he's a coming from Germany, and Richard Strauss is a so yes, I would say that there are moments, of course, in Vertigo where you just have James Stewart following Kim Novak in his car, and it's just a car following with this incredible music, and it's deliriously great.
It truly is.
Yeah.
Amazing. That is all the time that we have today. It was a pleasure
Hey,
speaking
I just realized
to
that we
you.
also ended with a Hitchcock reference, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I know. Honestly, it's my favorite Hitchcock film. It's beautifully shot, beautifully done.
I
So
I'm just really happy someone else said Tropic Thunder. That's really who that you said?
it's a British actor named Sam Buchanan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he said specifically the first half hour as well?
No, just Tropic Thunder.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it kind of peters out. Like when something is that good, it can't stay that good for that long. So, and like, but the first 30 minutes are really amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.